Right, Mount Carbine in far north Queensland just hit 28 degrees at 9:45 this morning with 85% humidity after copping 8 millimetres overnight. Now, here is what got my attention. Is your area about to see the kind of tropical downpour that turns roads into rivers? We've got the Bureau of Meteorology watching a potential cyclone development in the Coral Sea, severe weather warnings current for southeast Queensland, and over 3 million Australians in the path of what could be the wettest week this season. I am going to walk you through exactly when this hits, which models are showing what and why. The next 48 hours are absolutely critical for getting the forecast right. Chuck your location in the comments right now, your city or your state, and I'll get back to you tomorrow with a personalised update for your specific area, because this system is going to behave very differently depending on where you are. Let me give you the timeline for the major centres. Brisbane, you are looking at heavy rain developing late Thursday, peak intensity Friday morning through to Saturday afternoon. Sydney, this arrives Friday night, heaviest Saturday, easing Sunday morning. Melbourne, you'll catch the southern edge Sunday into Monday with decent falls. Perth, you are dry for now, but I'll talk about your serious heatwave situation in a minute. Adelaide, mostly dry this week, but cooler change Sunday. Hobart, rain develops Sunday, could be quite heavy. Darwin, you are in your typical wet season pattern, afternoon storms continuing. Now, here is the thing about this developing system. The Access models and the European model are showing two quite different scenarios for how intense this gets and where the heaviest rain actually falls. Access is painting a picture of a coastal low forming off the southeast Queensland coast Friday morning, pulling all that tropical moisture down from the north. The European model reckons the low develops further south, closer to the New South Wales border, which shifts everything about 50 to 100 kilometres. That 100-kilometre difference is absolutely crucial for places like the Gold Coast, Brisbane and the Sunshine Coast, because it's the difference between 200 millimetres and 400 millimetres over the 3-day period. We're talking about the kind of rainfall that can cause serious flooding if it sets up over the same areas for an extended period. The GFS model is sitting somewhere in between these two scenarios, which doesn't help narrow things down much at this stage. Let me be specific about what we're seeing right now in the tropical north. The monsoon trough is sitting across the top end, Darwin through to the Gulf country in Queensland. You've got that typical afternoon build-up happening, storms firing most days, but it's what S happening further south that S the main story. There is a weak tropical low currently sitting about 800 kilometres northeast of Cairns. Now, the models are split on whether this thing organises into something more significant. The latest Access R run from this morning suggests it stays weak, drifts southwest, and just adds extra moisture to the system developing off the Queensland coast. But hang on, the GFS model from overnight is showing it potentially intensifying into a Category 1 system before it gets shunted south by the steering currents. If that second scenario plays out, we are talking about a completely different ballgame for rainfall totals along the coast. For those of you in Townsville and Cairns, you are getting the typical wet season stuff regardless. Afternoon storms, humid conditions, temperatures in the low 30s. Cairns currently sitting on 31 degrees, Townsville 32. The bigger question is whether you cop an extra deluge Thursday or Friday if this tropical low tracks closer to the coast before heading southeast Queensland. Right, this is where it gets really interesting. The Sunshine Coast, Brisbane Metro, Gold Coast, you all in the firing line for significant rainfall. Current thinking has the heaviest falls Friday into Saturday. We're talking widespread 100 to 200 millimetres. Isolated areas could see 300 plus if you get stuck under the persistent bands. Toowoomba on the ranges, you will see good falls as well, that orographic lift adding extra intensity as the moisture hits the escarpment. The compounding factor here is the ground is already saturated from the rain earlier this month. Brisbane picked up over 100 millimetres in that last system. The Gold Coast saw 150. Creek and river levels are elevated. The soil moisture is high, so this next hit is going to produce flooding much faster than it normally would. The BOM has already flagged potential flood watches for the southeast, and I reckon by tomorrow we'll see those upgraded to warnings for specific catchments. Actually, let me clarify that because I should be more specific about the catchment concerns. The Logan River, Albert River, Brisbane River upper catchments, these are the ones to watch. If we get that 300 millimetre scenario in the ranges west of Brisbane, you're going to see rapid rises. The coastal streams from the Sunshine Coast down through to the Tweed, they all respond quickly too. This isn't a major flood event we're talking about, but definitely minor to moderate flooding is on the cards for low-lying areas. Now, I mentioned the model uncertainty earlier. Let me show you why this matters so much. If the low forms where access thinks it will off the central Queensland coast, then tracks southeast, Brisbane gets absolutely hammered, but Sydney escapes with lighter falls. If the European model is right and it forms further south, Brisbane gets moderate rain, but Sydney and the Illawarra cop the heaviest stuff. We should have much better clarity tomorrow morning once the overnight model runs come through. Check back then because the forecast could shift significantly. Northern New South Wales, URE definitely in the impact zone regardless of which scenario plays out. Lismore, Byron Bay, Ballina, URE looking at 100 to 150 millimetres Friday night through Saturday. Coffs Harbour, similar story. The mid-north coast from Port Macquarie down to Newcastle, decent falls but probably not as intense, more like 50 to 100. These coastal areas will see the moisture stream in from the east as the low develops. Sydney Metro and the Illawarra, this is where that model disagreement really shows up. Conservative estimate based on access, URE getting 80 to 120 millimetres Saturday into Sunday. If the European model scenario verifies, that jumps to 150 to 200. Wollongong and the Illawarra escarpment could see even higher totals with the orographic enhancement. Either way, Saturday is going to be wet and unpleasant across the Sydney Basin. There's one thing about this system that S got me a bit concerned, and that S, the wind. Once this coastal low develops, we're going to see a pretty tight pressure gradient along the coast. That means winds really picking up Friday night through Saturday. We could be looking at gusts to 80, maybe 90 kilometres per hour right on the coast from about the Gold Coast down to the south coast of New South Wales. That is enough to bring down trees, especially with the saturated ground making root systems unstable. Power outages are definitely possible in the worst affected areas. Coastal residents should secure outdoor furniture and anything that could become a projectile in those winds. The combination of heavy rain and strong winds always creates hazardous conditions on the roads as well. Right, let's talk about the rest of the country. Melbourne and Victoria, URE on the southern fringe. The moisture won to make it down with the same intensity, but you will still see decent rain Sunday into Monday. Melbourne Metro, probably 40 to 70 millimetres. Geelong, similar. The northeast ranges like Brighton Falls Creek could see 80 to 100. Bit of a mixed bag for Tasmania. Hobart, rain developing Sunday, heaviest Sunday night into Monday. Could see 60 to 90 millimetres. Launceston and the north will see lighter falls, 30 to 50. Devonport gets some rain, but the heaviest stays south and east. South Australia, Adelaide. URE mostly dry this week, which is a nice change after the unsettled weather you've had lately. There's a cooler change coming through Sunday, which will drop your temperatures, but it's not bringing much rain with it. Maybe 10 to 20 millimetres at most in the metro area. Mount Gambier in the southeast might see a bit more, closer to 30. The mid-north and Flinders ranges stay dry through the period. Now Perth and Western Australia, you are in a completely different pattern. High pressure ridge sitting over the state, eyes in T, moving. Perth currently 34 degrees, climbing to 37 Thursday, 39 Friday, 41 to 42 Saturday. That's serious sustained heat with nights staying in the mid to high 20s. Inland areas even hotter. Kalgoorlie heading for 44 Friday and Saturday. Geraldton will get some relief from the sea breeze, but still 38 to 40. Bunbury similar. Coastal location helps, but still uncomfortably hot. The concern is no significant relief until late next week. The ECMWF hints at a possible trough Wednesday or Thursday, but that S8 or 9 days away with uncertainty. Stay hydrated, check on elderly neighbours, never leave kids or pets in cars. Fire danger across southern WA elevated to extreme in several districts. Total fire ban days in place for Perth Hills, Wheatbelt and other regions. If you anywhere with bush around, have your fire plan ready. This weather can turn small fires catastrophic quickly. Extreme heat warnings issued for the entire southern half of the state Thursday through weekend. Let me swing back to Queensland for a minute because there's something developing that I want to keep you informed about. Remember that tropical low I mentioned earlier, the one sitting northeast of Cairns? The latest satellite imagery is showing it's got a bit more organisation than it had 12 hours ago. Now, it is still not a cyclone. It hasn't met the criteria yet, but the BOM is monitoring it closely. The waters up there are very warm, sea surface temperatures around 29 degrees, which is plenty to support cyclone development if the other conditions come together. The question is whether it has time to organise before the steering pattern pushes it south and it interacts with that coastal system forming off southeast Queensland. If it does intensify to cyclone strength, even briefly, that adds a whole extra dimension to the rainfall forecast because you are talking about a much more intense moisture feed. The wind shear in the environment is currently marginal, so it could go either way. Current official thinking from the Bureau is that it probably doesn't make it to cyclone intensity, but there is still a bit of uncertainty around that. We'll have a better idea tomorrow once we see how the system evolves over the next 24 hours. This is exactly the kind of situation where checking back for updates is crucial because the forecast can change quite significantly in a short time. If you haven't already, drop your location in the comments. I'll reply with specific details for your area. Be specific. Don T, just say Queensland, tell me Gold Coast or Mackay. Darwin and Northern Territory, classic wet season mode. Darwin 33 degrees, 80% humidity, afternoon storms continuing all week. Catherine same. Alice Springs staying dry and hot, 38 to 40 degrees. Canberra, you'll see some east coast rain, not as intense as the coast, but Saturday into Sunday, 20 to 40 millimetres. Temperatures dropping to mid-20s. Let me give you some context on why this east coast system is shaping up the way it is. You've got this upper level trough diving southeast across the interior. At the same time, you've got very warm, moisture-laden air sitting over the Coral Sea. When that trough gets to the coast, it's going to drag all that tropical moisture southward and that S when the coastal low develops. The interaction between the upper trough and the surface low is what creates the intense rainfall. It is a textbook setup for a significant east coast rain event. The jet stream position is also playing a role here. It is sitting further north than average for this time of year, which is typical of La Nina patterns, even though we are technically neutral right now. That northern jet position helps steer these systems along the coast rather than pushing them quickly out to sea. This means the rain can persist for longer over the same areas. Could go either way at this stage in terms of exactly where the heaviest rain sets up. That S, the honest truth. The models are still figuring out the finer details. By tomorrow morning, we'll have the overnight access run, the latest European model, the GFS update, and we can compare all of them to see if they're reconverging on a solution or if they're still diverging. The wind timing should be clearer tomorrow. Models show peak gusts Saturday afternoon and evening for coast, but exact strength depends on where the low tracks. If it hugs coast closely, winds stronger and affect broader area. If it stays offshore, more moderate, longer range models suggest another system might develop early next week. Too far out for confidence, but the pattern looks active for 7 to 10 days along the east coast. For surf communities, swell builds significantly Friday into weekend. Solid 3 to 4 metre seas, possibly bigger on exposed beaches. Strong onshore winds Saturday make it messy. Not great surfing conditions, but powerful waves. Beach erosion possible with high tide, big swell and sustained winds. Agricultural impacts worth noting. For grazing country in southern Queensland and northern New South Wales, this rain is generally beneficial. Concern is if we hit 300 millimetre plus range quickly, that S when you see stock losses and bogging. For cotton and summer crops, timing matters. Gentle rain helps. Heavy dumps can damage crops at vulnerable stages. If you still with me, and Havender commented, do it now. I reply to every comment with location-specific details. Severe thunderstorms could embed in this rain Friday afternoon and evening. Atmospheric profile suggests enough instability for localised very heavy downpours, frequent lightning, possible small hail on top of the widespread rain. Watch the rainfall rates too. 50 to 60 millimetres per hour overwhelms drainage and creates flash flooding quickly. Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sydney, all those urban areas with concrete and limited drainage. That's where flash flooding becomes real. Bottom line on what to do. Southeast Queensland or northeast New South Wales, Friday and Saturday will be wet. Don T drive through floodwater, have backup outdoor plans. Low-lying areas, watch river levels and be ready to move. Sydney and surrounds, Saturday is your wet day. Unpleasant but not dangerous unless you are being silly. Plan for a wet weekend. Perth and WA, opposite problem with heat. Friday and Saturday brutal. Stay cool, hydrated, avoid midday sun. The uncertainty isn't Timmy hedging, it's genuine. Coastal lows are difficult to forecast precisely until forming. Models show general pattern, but exact details emerge as system develops. Tomorrow S update will be crucial for track, intensity and specific totals. Weekend timing seems fairly locked in, really just location and intensity being refined. Check back tomorrow and Friday for a clear picture. Long-range pattern beyond weekend looks unsettled for east, high pressure and heat for west, persisting into early February. One more thing about the tropical system. Even if it stays a tropical low and doesn't become a cyclone, it is feeding moisture into the pattern. That moisture from warm northern waters is loaded, which is why rainfall totals could be so significant. It's got tropical character, not just a regular winter low. Tomorrow I will have latest model data and overnight runs with much better model agreement. I will give you specific timing and rainfall amounts. If BOM issues warnings, I will break them down. If the tropical low intensified, we'll discuss implications. Video drops early morning before your day starts. Drop your location in comments if you haven't. Brisbane watching clouds. Sydney prepping for Saturday. Perth surviving heat. Let me know. This forecast will change over the next 24 hours. That is how weather works with these systems. Closer to the event, more precise the forecast. Check back tomorrow. Stay safe. Look after each other.